Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. Let us waste no time at all and dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. So of course we begin this episode in the aftermath of Vilia's reveal. Viridian is in fact Keyleth's mother, which is still absolutely insane. But the party has a brief conversation with her where she sort of just explains her history, how she got here. She explains how she failed her trials for her people, and she was essentially defeated by a kraken, and then the next thing she remembers is being on this island. She seemed to have been thrown out of the water near a place where a waterfall flowed upwards towards the mountain, this being the Heaven Falls on the island. And so now the party has to decide what they want to do. They definitely want to save the other people on this island and perhaps deal with Vokodo before TravelerCon comes. And so they decide that their best bet is to go to these Heaven Falls, since Vokodo has said that the Heaven Falls are forbidden for people to traverse, which likely means it's a backdoor to his lair, or at least something along those lines. And on the topic of TravelerCon, the party theorizes that what if the Traveler knew about this memory loss on the island? This would be the perfect place for him to get rid of them all. Now obviously this doesn't sit well with Jester, and honestly there seems to be a lot of pressure on her right now. So I feel like it's really only a matter of time before Jester breaks in one way or another. However, it's getting late, so the party decides to take shelter back at their boat. However, upon messaging Orly, it would seem that their boat, the Ball Eater, has been destroyed by the dragon turtle. Orly mentioned that the crew is now resting in the village, but the party is now going to have to find somewhere else to rest for the evening. The party then decides to simply journey to the Heaven Falls. Jester, Caleb, and Vilia shift into a flying beast and carry the other members of the party to their destination. Upon reaching the Heaven Falls, Ford summons his sword to cast a little bit of light in the surrounding area. The sword that he previously gave to Vokodo. I'm sure everything will be fine, except for the fact that a few minutes later, Jester and Bo decided to scout away from the island to see if that watchful presence follows them. Jester noticed that the volcano seems to be glowing a bit hotter, and there is a subtle rumbling sound coming from the mountain, signaling that Vokodo is not happy. During this brief downtime as the party sets up camp at the Heaven Falls, Jester decides to commune with the Traveler, and I don't think this commune went as well as Jester may have hoped. It did confirm some unfortunate suspicions that the party had of the Traveler. The Traveler confirms that he did know of the memory loss that comes with this island, and he did admit that the memory loss was his backup plan in case his followers decided to stay with him. But he did reassure Jester that he wouldn't abandon her and that he would take the rest of her party with him when they left the island. He would just leave behind the rest of the followers. And he just essentially reiterates how he just hates being a god. He doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. He just wants to move on. Now, obviously, this is a lot for Jester to take in, and she's clearly overwhelmed with emotion over this newfound knowledge of the Traveler. And as the commune comes to a close, the Traveler attempts to cheer Jester up by showing the symbol of the tattoo of Captain Tusktooth that Jester typically draws on the moon, before disappearing into the night. Then we shift over to Caduceus' commune with the Wild Mother. The Wild Mother lets Caduceus know that Vokodo is aware and is watching the party, and she also tells Caduceus that there is nowhere that the party can go on this island that will protect them or hide them from Vokodo's gaze. Bo and Veth decide to dive into the water and investigate this waterfall that flows upwards towards the mountain. Bo investigates closer and realizes that it's just a massive geyser. There seems to be a almost tear in the ground where this water shoots out from. But without wanting to put themselves in danger, Bo and Veth then return to the surface with the rest of the party. And upon their return, Caleb asks if anyone has any jade, to which Veth responds with yes and offers up her jade rabbit statue. Caleb then calls Veth over to help him with a spell. Caleb and Veth go inside the dome that Caleb has created, and then Caleb turns this jade statue into jade dust and begins casting program image. And he then begins to create all of the memories, all of the adventures, the important moments that the party has gone through. He creates them all along the inside of the dome in just a beautiful montage of all of the amazing, sad, hilarious, heartwarming memories the party has shared together. And then this allows Veth and Caleb to reflect on their time with not only each other, but with the rest of the party. They've come a long way from being simple criminals locked away in a jail cell. Eventually, the rest of the party comes in, and they can all share this beautiful moment, just looking back on all of the memories that they've gone through and shared together. Bo pointing out all of the times that Ford has been assaulted by turtles, and then Yasha asking if Caleb can bring that image of her and Zoala closer to her so that she may look upon it as she sleeps. Overall, just such a wonderful, beautiful moment that Caleb created for the party. In the morning, however, things start off a bit rough for the party as Ford, Yasha, Jester, and Caduceus all begin to lose their memories. Now, for me, the most heartbreaking one was Yasha forgetting who Molly was and who Zoala was. But thanks to greater restoration by Vilia and Caduceus, their memories are restored. But the party is going to have to quicken their pace and not stay any more nights on this island in fear of more of them losing their memories. And then Ford and Caduceus also lost an item. Ford lost a hammer, and then Caduceus lost his straw hat. Now, I don't know about you, but I really hope Ford gets that hammer back. It meant so much to him. And so now, with the whole day ahead of them, the party decides to further investigate this mysterious geyser. Jester and Caleb take their time to look for pearls, however, while the rest of the party does their investigations. Veth decides to cast Levitate on herself and slowly float to the top of this geyser, while Ford, Yasha, and Bo decide to dive underneath to get a closer look at this geyser. Ford casts See Invisibility and sees an aura around this geyser. Nothing too alarming, but it's clear that this geyser is not natural, but we could already assume that. Yasha unfortunately gets a little too close to the geyser, and after a failed strength saving throw, she is immediately sucked into it and flung very quickly into the air. And in an attempt to save herself, she unfurls her spectral wings, and they're beginning to feather. Unfortunately, not enough to where she could use them for flight, but still feathering. She then crashes into the mountainside, taking a little bit of damage, but nothing too serious. And at this point, Veth has reached the top, and they have a brief conversation about the fact that Yasha's wings are beginning to feather. Yasha had no idea this could even happen. She only saw it happen in a dream. And then Veth says, well, you must be on the right path. There must be something you're doing right for such an amazing thing to happen. Which definitely feels good for Yasha, since seeing her feathered wings gives her more concrete evidence that she is in fact healing, and it's not just an internal feeling. I cannot wait for the moment that she unfurls her wings and they are fully feathered. That is going to be an absolutely badass moment for Yasha. Moving on, Caduceus and Ford decide to investigate the mountainside that this geyser is shooting up against a bit more, and Ford notices that there's something off about the mountainside behind the geyser. Ford points it out, and Jester uses control water to part the geyser a little bit, and Ford reaches for the mountainside and his hand just goes through. And so he decides to fully go through this illusory mountainside, and he enters a massive cavern. The rest of the party decides to follow suit, Caleb turning into a great white shark and swimming through, which startles Ford, causing him to cast a few eldritch blasts at the great white shark, but Caleb is fine. Bo tries to go through, however she is shot up into the air, failing her strength saving throw and being sucked into the geyser. Yasha is able to pull her to safety, and then Bo just does some dope-ass monk shit, jumps off the mountain, and slides into the cavern. Eventually, the entire party makes it into the cavern, and they start to explore. And they quickly notice that this cavern is filled with dozens and dozens of ships, most of which seem to be sailworthy. So at least now they have plenty of options for when they want to leave the island. As the party investigates, they notice in the water there seems to be a red glow, a glow that's familiar to them, as it's the torch bloom that seems to lead the way to Vokodo's lair. Caduceus decides to get a closer look at this torch bloom, and unfortunately, he fails a familiar wisdom saving throw, which compels him to go through these tunnels and reach Vokodo's lair. Something in him tells him he must go to Vokodo. He knows he has to do it. And so, he begins to swim into the torch bloom towards Vokodo's lair. Thankfully, Ford notices this and immediately goes after him. And after a few rounds of back and forth, Ford trying to grapple Caduceus, Caduceus breaking free, Ford trying to command him to stop, Caduceus blinding him, Ford bringing him closer, Caduceus eventually breaks free and continues towards the lair. Ford goes back up to the rest of the party, completely blind due to Caduceus, and just screams at them, yells at them, telling them that Caduceus is going towards Vokodo's lair. The rest of the party dive in and begin their chase towards Caduceus, their ally who is under the influence of some magic. They must reach him before Caduceus gets to Vokodo's lair, or else who knows what could happen. And a really unfortunate part of all of this is Caduceus and Ford both blew a lot of spells during their confrontation. So if they do end up having to face Vokodo this day, they're not going to be as powerful as they could be. And with the party chasing after Caduceus, that is where the episode ends. Holy moly, it is not looking good so far for the party. Thankfully, Ford is very quick in the water, so I'm sure that Ford will be able to catch up to Caduceus, but will they be able to snap Caduceus out of this trance that he finds himself in? I guess we'll just have to wait and see, and with all of that being said, we are going to wrap up. Let me know all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions during that episode. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.